There we go. Well, welcome everyone to our Saturday MDPB Maine EMS vaccine general information presentation. We're very excited to have so many of you here this morning. My name is Matthew Scholl. For folks I haven't met before, I'm the Maine EMS Medical Director. Our host for today is Tim Pieh, Region 3 Medical Director. Before we turn it over to Tim, just a few ideas and a few lessons that we learned from the first time, and some background perhaps. First and foremost, our goal today is to present you with as much information we have about this, the current 2 vaccines that exist against coronavirus. We are excited to share this with you, but ultimately recognize that this is your decision. And so our ultimate goal is to make certain that you have the most up-to-date contemporaneous information you need in an effort to make that decision when the time comes. We have been spending as much time as we can learning about these vaccines, and we're really excited to share this information with you. We've spent some time talking to some of you on the line right now and some of your colleagues in an effort to really try to understand where folks are at and where folks are coming from. And these slides represent the first pass, some of the most common questions that we've heard about. We recognize, though, that perhaps the most important piece of this presentation are your personal questions, the questions that you have that may not be addressed in these slides. And so as we spend time today, we really want to make sure we find opportunities to capture those questions from you. There are a couple of ways we found that work really well. We have about 30 slides. Yesterday, it took between 50 and 60 minutes to get through these slides. But during that period of time, if some questions come up, please use the chat function of Zoom. It looks like most folks logging in right now are logging in through the Zoom platform. And on the bottom of your screen, you should see an opportunity to click chat. And if you send a chat message to everybody, we will either let you know where in the presentation your question comes up, or we'll interject your question into the conversation as we move along. Sometimes we might even leave a message for you in the chat that attempts to answer your question. But in an effort to allow everyone who may not be watching the chat room hear your question and have an opportunity to hear the answer to your question, at some point we'll also pause and we will make sure your question gets asked through the video function as well. We also are going to just open it up at the very end of the presentation and just take any question that comes our way. For the purposes of the presentation period, though, and even when others are talking, if you don't mind muting yourself if possible, that just makes sure everyone is able to hear the person who's talking. But then as we get through the presentation part, please feel free to unmute yourself in order to ask questions. I think that's the bulk of the introduction right now. And with that, I just want to mention there are a number of other MDPB members that I see on the line right now, and EMS staff, including Dr. Beth Collimore, Dr. Mike Bohansky, Dr. Kate Zimmerman, Dr. Seth Ritter, and I see Mark Minkler and Sam Hurley from the office. I'm not certain if I have seen anyone else from Maine EMS show up, but we're excited to have all of them. Oh, I see Dr. Kelly Meehan-Kuze from the MDPB as well. We're excited for everyone. Please, MDPB members, if you'd like to interject at any point in time here, feel free to do so. Tim will be leading us with Mike leading our chat room. I'll be moving the slides along, and if there's anything MDPB members feel like adding, please do. And with that, Tim, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Let me make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so greetings from the small town of Rome. I'm battling a beautiful sun through the window in front of me, so I'm going to be moving my head to make sure I don't get blinded, which is a nice, beautiful day out there. So anybody that gets a chance to get outside, please do. This slide set is the work of a large number of folks. So we just got to give credit where it's due. So Maine EMS office staff have put hours into this. The multiple EMS medical directors, the MD PB has voiced in and reviewed it. All of this coming from a lot of really well-experienced teaching doctors here and staff. So I really appreciate all of that. And because this has been a joint effort, I'm gonna start with each slide, but I really would appreciate people jumping in. So I'll pause before Matt moves the slide on each time so we get other voices that can clarify what I've said, add in some more points, and just make this basically a group effort. So thank you for everything that everybody's done to get this ready. So go ahead, Matt, with second slide.
Yeah, and as we move on to the second slide, Mike reminds me, when you see a QR code, you can actually hover over that with your QR reader and find the reference that we used for this presentation.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thanks for that option. That smells of Sam Hurley's techie abilities, I think, the QR. Unless I'm wrong, if there are others that can do that kind of stuff. So thank you, thank you.
Oh, that is a good Dr. Bohansky doing that.
Oh, Mikey. Oh,
I got a little fancier than usual this time, so hopefully this works well for people.
I love it. I love it. All right. So just as sort of our goals and objectives, it always helps me to know where we're going on a talk. So you can see the bullet points here. The key points is we're being offered this vaccine first. So which is a huge honor and reflects how much we've sacrificed and how much risk we've been willing to take during this pandemic. So we wanted to share everything that we've learned about this. And there's definitely been an analogy along the way here of building an airplane while you're trying to learn how to fly it. So this has been a bit of a sprint here to catch up with the knowledge and the scientific background here. I do want to make sure that it's very clear, this is your individual choice, whether you take this vaccine or not. And that decision has prompted a tremendous volume of conversations, of people trying to understand it. The idea here is not all of us have the time to do this deep dive, right? We're busy taking care of our jobs, taking care of our families, but it doesn't change the hesitancy, the critical kind of assessment needs that we have. And so the goal here is that we're going to give you the background to help with that. I sort of come from a philosophy that being hesitant, being uncertain, being critical of this decision is healthy. You're supposed to be. We're not a bunch of sheep here, right? We really want to make sure that we make a critical decision that's well informed. And what we're going to try to do is make sure that you are well informed through this discussion. So I myself found that this brought me back to medical school in an intense way. I had to relearn a lot of the stuff that I had been taught many years ago. So I just want to be sensitive that I felt overwhelmed reviewing some of this in the beginning. So if you feel the same way as we launch you through some of the bench science here, don't feel bad about that. We'll do our best to bring it to a digestible level of discussion. So I'm going to pause right there. Anything to add, folks?
Yeah, like I just want to remind folks, as I mentioned earlier, the questions you see in the here are reflective of questions that your peers have asked, then conversations that we've individually had with them. These by no means are the only questions that will arise today. And so please use the chat function or wait until the end, and we want to make sure we get all of your questions, because as Tim mentioned, this is a personal decision. And our goals today really are to empower you to make that decision one way or the other.
And I just want to make sure, I know there are a lot of my Region 3 colleagues here, but I've seen a couple names that aren't from this region, and welcome, but also just some perspective. So I'm the Region 3 medical director, just to introduce myself formally. I work as an emergency physician at Maine General Medical Center in Augusta and Waterville. And I am involved at the agency level with multiple different EMS agencies within Region 3, which is Kennebec and Somerset County. And then I respond most directly, most often with Belgrade and Rome fire rescue to 911 calls. So we can go to the next slide. One of the ways that we make decisions, at least saying we, as far as when I make a recommendation for patients in the emergency department, I am constantly weighing risk and benefit with any clinical decision I make. I truly wish that most of my decisions were more clean and black and white, but unfortunately they aren't. And often with every individual patient, I'm weighing this. What's been unique about this decision that we're coming up against is it's not us making a recommendation for our patients. This is about us. I mean, our skin's in the game here, right? And not just us, but many of us are the medical professional for our friends, our family. We're the ones that people come to and ask, what are you going to do? How are you making a decision? Should I get this, right? So we're gonna walk through this with the philosophy that it needs to be as open, and I love Matt's term, or maybe it's Mike's or Sam's or whoever wrote it, of brutal transparency, right? I think it works best for me to just give it to me straight, like what you know, what you don't know, give me the details, right? Let me digest this into my personal beliefs and my personal philosophies, and I'll come out with a decision at the end. We're going to walk through sort of the major parts of this, which was the process of the vaccine development, safety assessment. How do we know that it's safe? How do we get to that decision? And then also, how do we know if it works, which is the efficacy? What information have we gathered so far that tell us that we think this works? Again, please ask questions, throw up into the chat group, raise your hand, whatever it takes. Feel free to interrupt so that we can get your questions asked. And then again, just a reminder, the QR codes will pop up. Other things there, Matt, you want to jump in, or anyone else before we move on to the next slide?
No, but I think the next slide really helps us think about risk and how the risk of coronavirus is actually changing. Tim, do you want to touch base about that?
Yeah, so what you can see here is we're trying to give you visuals, different ways to look at it, at how deadly this has been for our country and the world. So we're talking at this point over 300,000 deaths. And last check, that's more than Americans that have died in World War II. So we've crossed some pretty significant thresholds here. The daily death toll at this point has passed what we saw for the Pearl Harbor attack for September 11th. Every single day is what we're looking at. You can see on the news recently about different parts of the country. California has gotten a lot of press time on no more available ICU beds in certain areas, or maybe it's not necessarily the bed, but the staffing for that bed. So not enough ICU docs available to pay close enough attention to get each individual patient the best possible care, or nursing available anymore. So we're getting at certain parts of the country to this critical point where you'll hear talk in the news about rationing of care and all these really hard decisions where we're not able to offer all the knowledge we've learned to every patient due to being overwhelmed. So there's a lot of motivation for us to make that point and make sure that we do our best to express that, so that when we make our personal risk benefit decision, we're understanding what kind of pressure we're under to take any help that we can. We in Maine have seen records, even this week, just in the last several days, we're busting through records on positives per day, right? So it's not that we're isolated from what's going on in the rest of the country. We can see, we've always been a little bit behind on what the rest of the country is experiencing in Maine, which is one of the benefits of the top right corner here, geographically, but we can feel that early signs that they were feeling, we're feeling now. So it's something that gives me significant stress when I'm planning and helping plan our hospital's response for this. And I'll pause there for others.
I think one thing to just recognize is that we are, as Tim mentioned, far from moving through this pandemic. In the last 4 days, we've had 2 days in which we've had over 500 cases, 1 day in which we've had over 450 cases. And today it looks like we've had slightly over 400 cases, for a sum total in 4 days of approaching 1,900 patients. The history of this disease has suggested that about 20% of those folks, or almost 400 people, we should expect to require the services of a hospital, some of those services being the most advanced services in the ICU. Those numbers scare me personally, because our healthcare system is really attuned to manage day-to-day events, not necessarily events related to the pandemic. And the addition of 400 patients requiring hospital services and some of those requiring intensive care beds in the next week to two is terrifying to me. Again, setting the stage for what this pandemic has done to us.
Yeah, Matt, I think for me, what really impacted was the understanding that our success in decreasing the mortality of folks that end up in the ICU specifically and end up on ventilators was not that we figured out a certain script or recipe or checklist that works for every patient. It was that the experts at critical care management, if they're allowed the time to customize their care to each individual patient, that's when they get into more acceptable mortality rates. Once they have too many patients to be able to precisely figure out what each of their patients needs and then pivot and apply the care in very unique, specific ways. Once they get overwhelmed with that and they have too many patients, then the mortality rises. So I just don't want, I want time for my family and me with that ICU doc, right? That they can customize it. So a couple things here on these slides. I love these. Whoever Rebel Bear is, like, kudos for the artist coming out of this. And this is just for me a visual, like I have completely felt like I have a chain around my ankle, whether that's my kids asking, can friends come over, or me missing my friends and wanting to socialize, or me missing my elderly parents and wanting to go. You know, I haven't hugged my mom for months, right? And I'm always redirecting her on, no, yes, you have to mask up when you're with your sister in the car. You know, all these things that are just dragging back, and no, we're not having Christmas together the same way we've had it before. If we have it, it's all a hot debate right now in my family. It's just been a really sort of exhausting defensive posture, right? I just feel like we have been trying to defend from this boogeyman. And until this vaccine came out, I've had nothing to push back with. Nothing to attack, nothing to punch with, no weapons, right? Nothing offensive. And kudos to the geeks to finally giving us something that we can do that can attack this virus like we haven't before. So we'll get into that, because I really want to say, like, we can kill this virus now. Like, when we get into the vaccine, the nuts and bolts of this, I really want to make sure that you're clear on how the immune system will, with this vaccine, attack. And I'm going to try to paint that picture, because personally, I like directing my anger a little bit against this for everything that I've sacrificed so far, and watched so many others sacrifice far more than I have. So, any other thoughts?
Totally agree with you, Tim. That's why those artist renderings spoke to me so much. I felt exactly the way you described it.
So let's talk about how this happens, right? So really, I'm going to get you to see that on the right side, it says cytotoxic T cell, right? So that little bugger is like, that's like the tactical team stacking outside a room, right? So that right there is a killer T cell. So we want to figure out how, through this story and the science here, how that T cell knows who to attack is all what this is about, right? So this is a global look at the way we develop immunity to a virus. So when you start on the top left, that is the coronavirus in this visual picture. The key part to this is those little red T things sticking out, those spike proteins that look like they're in that red shape on the outside. That looks like a circle, but it's really a globe type shape, right? It's a ball type shape to this virus. What those little spike proteins do is they are the key to how this virus enters your cells. And the lock is the ACE2 receptor. And that's a receptor that is broadly found throughout your whole body. And it's why, in my mind, your whole body gets affected by this virus, because it can get into any cell, is the way I think about it. So the spike protein right there fits right onto that ACE2 receptor. It unlocks the door into the cell, and then it can slide through the cell membrane and enter into the core center of the cell, okay? It's not entering into the DNA or the nucleus. And that's a critical point here. This is not there. The nucleus is in a different area of the cell. It never interacts with this when you think about the leap to the virus, right? So this comes in, it enters in, it releases its mRNA or the RNA that's in the actual virus. And that RNA, so these viruses, unlike bacteria, they can't replicate on their own. They totally depend on our cells to copy themselves and spread throughout our body. It's a really kind of a dark, sinister characteristic of viruses, that they manipulate the mechanics of how our cells build things. And they basically take over those building factories and they give them one recipe, which is our virus, right? They say replicate us, and that's what the RNA is. So they replicate themselves, they get kicked out of the cell, and they spread on to the next one. And it's like this chain reaction of copying more and more and more and more virus. The way the immune system fights it and how we get better, if we're lucky enough to get better from coronavirus, is there's this whole series of cells that make up our immune system. So the first one there you see is this antigen presenting cell. An antigen is really just a way of tagging the coronavirus so that the rest of the immune system sees it. So I think of this like if you had this terrorist cell in your country, right? And you just couldn't find them, but you knew they were there. Wouldn't it be slick that when you did see them hidden within, you know, silently within our population, you could put a big sticker on their back, right? To identify them to the rest of our teams that could take them out, right? That's the antibody. So they tag a sticker on their back, which you can see is that bluish kind of three-pronged shape right there. And watch it, it's got a bunch of stickers around that coronavirus. That then is how the cytotoxic T cells know who to attack, okay? Once the antibodies are stuck on it, then the killer T cells, the cytotoxic T cells, will then go in there and they basically, it's like a snatch and grab. They engulf the antibody covered virus and then they kill it. And along the way are the T helper cells and the B cells that present those and produce those antibodies. So there's a more of a complex chain to this, but I think we really, where I kind of get excited and want to settle in is how do we get those cytotoxic T cells to know what to do here? All right, that's my little lesson there. Jump in with the rest of you geeks on how to further illustrate that.
I think you did a
Thank
great
you.
job there, Tim.
Yeah, your tactical reference is amazing. I'm stealing that. Thank you.
I tried to go with a sniper reference, but the truth is it's a snatch and grab. They can't really do it as much from a distance, but
Well, how about this, Tim? So
I'm feeling a little jazzed right now about some cytotoxic T cells that I'm hoping, since I got a Band-Aid on my left arm, that they're developing memory here. So,
well, if we used your virus as a terrorist cell,
yeah,
and we used your cytotoxic T cell metaphor, maybe that's like SEAL Team 6, and the T helper cells and the B cells are like Rangers and other SEAL teams. And the antibodies are like informants for that matter.
I love it. All right, I'm speechless. I'm gonna have to gather myself right now and move on. This slide right here was so helpful for me because one of my, again, healthy hesitancies about this vaccine personally was, how is this different than all the other immunizations that I got as a kid and I said yes to for my kids, right? And this was helpful for me to kind of go through it. All of the other vaccines that are on our recommended immunization schedule for us and kids and everyone else, all are based on somewhere along that entire immune response technical chain of events, right? They all target different parts of it with the idea is they want to give that group of SEAL Team 6 cytotoxic killer T cells memory and knowledge of who to go after, right? So I had the full series of immunizations. So my T cells, killer T cells, have a list of who they're going to hit, right? And that includes all of these that you can see, right? Some of these do it in different ways, right? And I don't want to get too much into that. This is something where I think if you really want to geek out, it's a fun ride here, but I also think it can be a little bit dizzying and glasses my eyes over if I do it too deeply. But the point is, measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, polio, pertussis, tetanus, right? Hepatitis B, all of these are in different ways figuring out how to alert our immune system of this disease, right, through a vaccine, and then also develop a certain length of memory, right? Now, those memories are different with each of these. Like I get my tetanus shot every 10 years, right? But I don't have to get my hepatitis B again, hopefully, right? So all these different memories are unique to the diseases and the mechanism by which they develop the memory of who to hit as far as those teams stacking outside the door. So I'm going to pause there and let other geeks jump in.
I think it's important to recognize that all of these technologies are being used right now to develop vaccines against coronavirus. It turns out that the current vaccines, the technology behind them are the easiest to mass produce quickly. And some questions arose yesterday about, well, how long have we been working on this? And the reality is we've been working on this since the early days of the pandemic. The unique thing about these vaccines is that you can code for a very specific part of the protein. You'll see what that's all about in just a second. But you can do that as long as you know the genetic code of the virus, which was identified in, I believe, December of last year. So 12 months ago, we knew exactly how to build a vaccine against this virus. And the mRNA technology allows you to do that very rapidly versus the other technologies, which will come down the pipe, but will take a little bit longer.
Excellent. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. All right, so some of these pictures look vaguely familiar to the previous immune pictures. So because it's just piggybacking on the same technology, okay? So what's different when you looked at the actual coronavirus itself, it had RNA in it, and that was a longer recipe to make the whole meal, right? Probably multiple recipes if you want to think of it this way. So when I had to cook Thanksgiving meal, holy smokers, that was stressful. This year, I had multiple recipes for a whole Thanksgiving meal, correct? Right? So this vaccine has just a tiny piece of one of that entire meal, which is the spike protein on the outside. That's all. It just has this small section of one of the many recipes, right, that make up how the body is supposed to replicate the whole virus. All it does is concentrate on just that spike protein sitting out on the outside, which is fascinating science, right? And in an amazing leap of science to get this done, because that little spike protein just on the outside, it's just the key, right? It's not the whole virus, but it's been successful in alerting the entire immune system to get to that killer T cell enough to recognize the entire virus and kill the whole thing, right? So they somehow they won the lottery on this one. One of the things that is really difficult and challenging from a bench science perspective is that little piece of messenger RNA is wicked unstable. It gets broken down in a day or two or three, right? It just is not in any way stable. So the biggest challenge here was, how do I get this very, very unstable piece of messenger RNA, which is really a recipe for the cell to replicate millions and millions and millions of the outside key, that spike protein? How do I get it into the cells from the vaccine shot? And one of the most difficult things was to create a vehicle, which is really just a greasy bubble of fat around the mRNA that would allow it, to get from the needle into your arm, and then from there into the cell, like through the cell membrane. And that was another huge lottery win of the geeks, was to create a vehicle, which is just a bubble of greasy fat, that was able to go up against the cell and then get into it. And then it spilled out, it squirted out that messenger RNA into the cytoplasm of the cell. And the cytoplasm is just the fluidy inside, away from the DNA. That's key. Nowhere near the DNA and the nucleus that houses the DNA of your cell. It's just down there in the fluid around on the inside. And in there, you can see that thing is called a ribosome. That's just the little mini factory that takes the recipe of the messenger RNA and creates a spike protein. That's a mechanism that it's doing all the time to create all the other parts of you, right? But it just says, oh, you want me to build this? Okay. And it builds the spike protein and then kicks it out. So the key thing for me was that little bubble around it was the vehicle that carried it safely through, didn't let the mRNA get broken down yet by your body, which will do rapidly, got it into the cell, it then gives the recipe, and then it gets broke down rapidly right after that. So for me, cognitively, that was reassuring. This thing is not hanging around and spitting out weird stuff, right? It's not like it's a recipe book and all of a sudden it starts making other meals, right? I don't want anything to do with that. That would be, for me, worrisome for side effects, right? It just does its one little recipe and then it's done. It gets broken down rapidly. I'm gonna pause right there. Oh, one other thing, part of this, like Matt alluded to, one of the reasons we were able to move so fast on this is that we've been working on vaccines for similar coronaviruses ever since SARS and Mediterranean. What is it? What is, Matt? Help me, or Mike, help me with the
Middle East Respiratory Syndrome.
Thank you.
MERS.
That's the camel virus, right? If I remember it right, you know. So we've been plugging away on these for a while, and we were lucky enough to be able to piggyback on all that science that's already been done. And then we were sort of on the tipping point. And somewhere in there, this greasy fat bubble vehicle breakthrough happened, right? And from what I understand, that was a hang up before. But once you line up everybody that knows anything about this, right, across the world with one mission, which is a coronavirus vaccine, guess what happens, right? Things move fast, right? Nobody's doing anything else. All these bench docs are on hold just working on this, right? So it's amazing when you get everybody focused on one compass bearing. All right, I'm gonna pause, jump in.
Yeah, so a couple other things that came up yesterday on this slide. We've actually been working on this technology, or the scientific community has been working on this technology since the 1990s, and there have been a number of different vaccines that have gone through phase 1 and phase 2 trials using the same technology, including vaccines against rabies, influenza, cytomegalovirus. There was a Zika virus vaccine using a similar technology. And I know there have been a lot of concerns about this technology being new, this technology being different, this technology being unproven. But the experience has been very reassuring. And that's another thing that allowed us to move so quickly here. I should also mention that there has been significant advances in this technology around the management of different cancer cells. And the unique thing about this technology is you really can make a very deliberate recipe, as Tim mentioned. Once you know the genome of the agent in question, the cell in question, the virus in question, the cancer in question, you can personalize the vaccine to that genome. And it's very, very exciting technology in that regard. Two other things that came up. One is that this mRNA, this little strand of RNA never enters in your nucleus. There's no risk that you could ever alter your genetic code, your DNA. Your ribosomes exist in the cytoplasm of the cell, those little factories Tim described, and the messenger RNA of these vaccines get picked up by the ribosome, not by the nucleus where your DNA exists. And another really good question from yesterday was, what happens if the spike protein mutates? Well, I thought that was a great question because if you think about it, if the spike protein of the coronavirus mutated, would that leave us vulnerable, since this is so specific to the spike protein? And what occurred to me as we were talking yesterday is that the spike protein is the Achilles heel of this virus. This spike protein, as Tim mentioned earlier, it's the key to enter our cells. And so if that spike protein mutates, this virus can't enter our cell. So if the spike protein were to mutate, coronavirus would effectively go away in many ways because our cells could not become infected. But because it is such a critical, vulnerable part of the coronavirus, that is why scientists targeted that solitary protein with this messenger RNA. I will also mention that those other technologies we saw earlier, some of the attenuated technologies, some of the DNA technologies, some of the other cellular technologies are all taking advantage of the spike protein because it is such an important part to this virus's perpetuation.
I'm going to jump in here quickly with a question from the chat, which was whether there have been any sort of mRNA vaccines to make it to phase 3 trials before, and if not, why not? Matt or Tim, either way, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, so I'll tackle that. The reality is that there hasn't been yet. And part of the reason is because all the other mRNA vaccines that we've used have been either very specific to a rarer disease like cytomegalovirus, like rabies, or like Zika, in which there wasn't necessarily a financial foundation to advance the technology into phase 3. And then with influenza, even though it's a very, very common virus, we already have existing technologies to address that are so common and so cost effective at this point in time. So it took something like the pandemic for us to get into a phase 3 trial with these types of technologies. I will say I have not studied the technology, this technology and its implications and uses in cancer. I do know there have been phase 2 trials, but I'm not certain if there are phase 3 trials that have existed yet using mRNA against cancers.
One thing to piggyback on that though, Matt, is that because there have been phase 1 and 2 trials, specifically the phase 1 on multiple other versions of this technology, that's the safety evaluation of the technology. And so we've had multiple looks at similar technology regarding safety. And it's reassuring. So it's not, for me at least, knowing that this way of developing immune memory and immune offensive action has been looked at from different angles, and they're not kicking up severe side effects. I'm reassured by that personally, right? That this is something that we've been looking at from different angles.
Hey, let me jump in here quickly just to clarify one thing. Prior to COVID, I don't know of any phase 3 trials, but the things that are getting reported, the almost 45,000 trial for Pfizer, the 30,000 trial for Moderna, those are phase 3 trials. So those are the first examples of this, and they, as you know, everybody knows, are to this point incredibly successful. The kinds of side effects you would expect to see from these things usually show up in the first couple of days or maybe a week or two at most. So we don't have years and years of track record, which is mostly useful for saying how long will this virus be protective. But in terms of safety data, we have really good data. Seeing studies with tens of thousands of people is exceptionally rare, and in this time frame is basically unprecedented. So to be clear, for the stuff we're using right now, we have really big, really good phase 3 trials.
Love it. Well said. Oh, this was a big hesitancy for me. And full disclosure, a lot of doctor workroom discussions of hesitancy, right? So we are not immune to critical thinking like you have, right? We are not immune to saying, seriously, you're going to stick this into my arm when it just got developed. Like, all these discussions are ones that we've had amongst ourselves in our own minds. Again, it's healthy to be critical, right? That's our job, to think this through. So I really wanted to break down what is in this thing. Like, what are they injecting into your arm, right? And I go a little more Fisher-Price on this because you can quickly get into impossibly complex chemical names for this discussion, right? And I believe that we have the impossibly complex chemical names into the reference document that's out there. But what this is the mRNA that we've been talking about. And then in addition, there are 4 lipids that encompass, as well as cholesterol, that greasy bubble that protects the mRNA and then gives it access into the cell, okay? In addition to that, you have buffers, and buffers are just the solution that mimics the inside of our body, is how I think about it. And that's sucrose, which is sugar, and 4 different salts. Okay, so essentially what this vaccine is the mRNA, several different types of fat and cholesterol, sugar, and table salt. That's it. I mean, this is a clean vaccine in my mind. And when we start to tackle difficult questions about what'll come up in a little bit, what about if you're pregnant, or what about if you're breastfeeding, right? Should you get this? We don't have enough evidence on those yet. But when we look back on what's in this thing, right, it's hard to cognitively put together weird side effects that we haven't seen, right? I can't think through anything in my mind. Now, we're going to watch this just in case my mind is not big enough for rare stuff. But looking at it, there's nothing in there that really gives me too much pause once I understand what it is. And it took me a little while to get to this and break it down in my own mind. And I'm going to pause there.
Mario Baldi asks a really good question, which is, in terms of the mechanism you've explained to tag and attack the virus, what causes the side effects and the temporary sickness that some people experience after taking the vaccine? And Mario, we're going to explain that when we get down to the section on side effects, but the brief snapshot right now is that that's your body's immune system being kicked in. That's your body's immune system actually starting to target some of these spike proteins. But we'll talk more about that shortly. Thank you for that question. That was excellent.
And then just to highlight on this slide, what's not in it, right? That may be in other or a part of other vaccines is there's no live or attenuated virus in this particular vaccine or immunization. There's no DNA, it's just messenger RNA. There are no preservatives of any kind. That's why we have to have it frozen and cold, and we can only use it for a couple hours once it's opened and breached, or a couple days, because there's nothing in there to preserve it, to have it a longer shelf life. That's why the logistics of delivering this are such a headache, because we have limited time to use these once they're produced. And there's been no human or animal cells involved in the development. None of these, for some people, concerning associations to cell lines that were for them ethically problematic, right? So this is, in my mind, clean on multiple fronts: scientific, social, religious. It's a really clean vaccine. Let's pause there. Good slide.
Any questions folks have? I see Josh asked a question. So there is no stem cell use. No, there's no stem cells used in these vaccines. Essentially, scientists were able to identify the genome of the entire coronavirus and select a very small part of that, and then manufacture, without the use of stem cells or other live technologies, just a sliver of the genome. In the case of Pfizer, it's the spike protein itself. In the case of Moderna, it's a portion of the spike protein. And that's the only piece of the virus that is coded for in that messenger RNA. So that's a really exciting piece of this. That's all kind of fancy benchtop research that the scientists studying coronavirus used. Any other questions folks have right now, either with the chat function or just ask them if you have them. All right, well, let's then move ahead, because some of the other questions that we've run across are questions about the process. And was the process altered? Was the process hastened? What was the process to address this? What is Operation Warp Speed? Tim, you want to walk us through what this is?
Yeah, I'm gonna start, and then I'm gonna need some backup here. One of the healthy criticisms and healthy questions that we were talking about in our workstations and at shift change as physicians was, come on, this was fast, right? Seriously, you know, I think the only other vaccine development, or the quickest story of start to finish vaccine development, was mumps, and it was 4 years long, start to finish, I think, was the previous speed record. And we're talking, what, 11 months? And that's from disease discovery to vaccine. So hard to even compare. So there was definitely a healthy, tell me more here. How could you do this safely if you did it so fast? So go ahead and jump to the next slide and we'll walk through it. So this is the sort of government slide on how we did this. And I think for me, the key parts to this is what wasn't rushed. Right? So any vaccine has to go through, any development of a vaccine has to go through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 studies. The critical part to this is phase 1 is the first shot at safety, right? They give it to 100 or so people or hundreds of people, and volunteers bless those volunteers for this, because this, talk about being brave, right? This is when they find out, does anything bad happen to you when you get injected, right? And if you fail phase 1, it's over, you're done. Most of the time, these pharmaceutical companies that are developing this, these are for-profit companies, right? They're looking to make money, they're looking to do social good, but they're bound by being a company. So they're not gonna risk phase 2, phase 3, anything ahead of it until they know that it's worth the financial risk to proceed. So they do one part of this process, and then they don't do the next until they feel like they can take the risk, right? And the storyline that's going on in the background here is essentially, we funded every single part to this development straight up from the beginning. We said, we're gonna take away any risk hesitancy of losing money, and it's gonna take it completely off. So they got a blank check to do this entire thing start to finish when they started. And so once you have no worry that you could lose money on this and that you're guaranteed to make money on it, guess what happens? Well, you can do things simultaneously. Like you can start your manufacturing of this before you've even cleared all the phases. Because even if we cut this off after phase 2 or after phase 1, you've already been paid to manufacture it, right? So they were doing concomitant parts of this process at the same time. But again, they did not skip the safety. So they went all the way through the process of phase 1, did not accelerate it. They saw that it was good. They went to phase 2, which is dosing. Like what dose is going to work, right? You know, you think about how do we get to 324 milligrams of aspirin? Well, at some point, there's a phase 2 study where you compared other doses, and this is the one that works out. That's true with every medicine, every vaccine. So they figured out through phase 2 the doses, and then finally phase 3 is efficacy. Like, did it work? This process, all along each phase, they are still keeping a spotlight on safety, right? To make sure what they're looking for with safety is, look, it's okay to get a sore arm. It's okay to get body aches. It's okay to get some even chills and fever, right? That's all acceptable. That really is your immune system going through the process of alerting to this virus and then mounting a response and mounting a memory. That's what's going on. You don't get away with that for free, right? You gotta feel it to some degree where that process goes on. With that said, during that evaluation of the safety, during that whole time, what we've learned looking back on all those viruses, all those immunizations that we showed on that slide way back when that included all the different types of vaccines, each of those processes, we saw the vast, vast majority of the severe side effects within the first 6 weeks. And that has been a story that's played out on every immunization. Everything that we cared about that was a severe side effect that gave us pause on safety of vaccines, we saw in the first 6 weeks. So what we did on this process is said, let's do it for 8 weeks, and then let's move on, right? Now, with that said, we are still watching, right? So we're not going to give up on looking for safety. All of the whole process is going to continue for, I think, 3 years on this. That's both safety monitoring, but more importantly, how long is the memory monitoring of this? So they want to go through several seasonal cycles if this is going to play out as such. We don't know because we're still in one season. And during that, this slide breaks down all the other parts of developing a vaccine and shows how we did concomitant things. And I'm going to pause to let others that know this a little better than me jump in.
Thanks for that, Tim.
Yeah, I just threw in the chat there. One of the big things that you point out here, just that parallel processing changed a whole lot. So they started manufacturing very early on, knowing that if the clinical trials didn't bear out, that they would have to dump everything that they'd manufactured, but that manufacturing process is slow. And by being funded proactively, they were willing to do that. And then by cutting that phase 3 trial period shorter, saying we can't wait 3 years to see how long the immune response lasts, like we do with normal clinical trials of vaccines. We just want to show that it does create an immune response, and we'll continue to watch those people for 3 years. Was another way that they cut a huge chunk of time out of this.
And perhaps the final thing to mention about this, and some have asked, well, why are these messenger RNA vaccines the first? And the reality is that this technology is perhaps the easiest. If you think about all the other technologies that are out there, like an attenuated virus, or developing, taking parts of the virus and using those parts of the virus to stimulate your immune system, all of those require that you grow a host medium, that you then grow the virus, and then you then culture the virus and either kill it or remove the parts of the virus that you want. All of that takes much, much, much more time. The reality is that this messenger RNA technology, we already had the lipid nanoprotein goo that Tim talked about. We already had the buffer established. All we had to do was find out the genome and then build that part of messenger RNA to the spike protein. Find the vulnerable part of the protein, and then code for it and stick it in the lipid nanoprotein and the buffer. Joshua Stewart. Let me see. Let me try to get to Joshua Stewart mentioned. So along with parallel processing, coming from a little bit of a manufacturing background, I know there are often glitches in the system early on while figuring out the manufacturing line, but we're also hearing that Pfizer and Moderna won't be held legally accountable for errors, side effects, etc. So thank you for that, Josh. I will say that one of the other parallel processing things that occurred was that the FDA actually rolled out their quality improvement and quality assurance teams early on in the process to decrease those numbers of glitches and side effects, those glitches and issues that you're talking about. Typically what happens is that enough vaccines are only manufactured to run the trials. But because of the parallel processing, well, let me back up. Enough vaccines are usually manufactured to run the trial alone, and it's only after the final approval that the FDA's quality teams get involved in looking at the factory and watching the processes and overseeing the processes. Because these vaccines were made and were developed in parallel process, and the manufacturing of the vaccine occurred early on in the process, the FDA's quality teams were involved from the get-go, ensuring plant inspections were completed, that quality processes were engaged with, et cetera, et cetera. And you're right, there are some stipulations about that the government has given the manufacturers, but on the back end, the government's also created systems. If there are any side effects or any issues, there is a process and a program to account for those and remunerate for those and address those at the federal level instead of at the business level. I hope that answers your question. Sam also wanted us to mention that there are about 25 people on Facebook Live. We want to welcome them along with the 53 folks who are here right now. And if you want to submit comments through the mechanisms on Facebook Live, we'll do our best to answer those questions as well. You can email us directly at maine.gov/EMS. And then there are a question about 3 reported severe allergic reactions in Alaska. We're gonna get to that when we get to the adverse effects, Don. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Joshua, you asked us to expound on something. Do you want to text us exactly what you wanted us to expound on?
That was the parallel processing. It was just a second text on the same chain there.
Great. Any questions about the process right now? Because we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with the process, with the fact that safety was not sacrificed in the context of moving quickly. That's one of the very fascinating things about how this process was played out. But any other questions about that?
One thing, Matt, that I sort of learned about monitoring this through the FDA approval process was that there were 2 independent committees that evaluated the entire studies as part of the FDA approval process that were independent of the pharmaceutical company itself and the government agency. So 2 different groups of experts that were completely independent with no skin in the game here, so that they had 2 rounds of critical assessment of this that could read through the data and levy their comments and their opinions on this. And that again was another layer of reassurance for me that it wasn't just government with the motivation to put this out or pharmaceutical company with the motivation to be successful, right? That we had 2 different groups that had no sort of pre-done bias, right? That themselves were groups of experts that could go pour over this data far more critically than I can, and then give their approval if they felt that was indicated. So I was very reassured to find that was a truth through the FDA approval process. And emergency use process is where we are at right now, not full FDA approval.
So Tim, I think it's actually probably fair to say there are even more than 2, to be quite honest with you, because each study had an independent blinded group of career scientists who were removed from the manufacturer, who were overwatching the process and helping the FDA interpret the process. The FDA uses an independent review called the Vaccines and Related Biologic Products Advisory Committee, which is also independent scientists from across the country who have nothing to do with the manufacturer, have no biases or connections to the manufacturer, and ultimately they're advisory only to the FDA, so they have no financial connectivity to the FDA. And then the CDC has a group called the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which is the same kind of independent group. I think it's fair to say that I've heard public health experts talk about this in metaphors to our trip to the moon, that scientists recognize we had one shot, that we have one opportunity now to dampen this pandemic in the world and in our own country. And the career scientists who have dedicated themselves to this have done so with such fervor and earnestness, recognizing they have to do it right, because we can't sacrifice safety in the effort of moving ourselves through this pandemic. I see that Sam left a question from Phil on Facebook. If there is no live virus in the vaccine, is there a risk of being contagious if you develop mild symptoms as a result of getting your inoculation? Phil, the quick answer is no. We're going to kind of tackle that a little bit more in depth in the next couple slides. So thank you for that question. That's a great foreshadowing of something we'll get to here in a bit. Any other questions on process right now? All right. So let's get into some of the questions, the frequently asked questions that we've heard from you or your peers. As we've been talking about this with folks, we've been really keen to the questions that have come up, and we wanted to address those head on. And we wanted to be very transparent with the best information we have right now to help you, as we mentioned earlier, make decisions personally about this vaccine. Tim, do you want to walk us through some of these?
Absolutely. So the first one is, am I going to be told I have to take it, right? And no, we're not recommending that this be mandatory, and that we feel that this is important for it to be your individual decision, especially at this time, because this is so new. This is emergency use authorization right now. It just felt uncomfortable for us to make any recommendation beyond that for you and for us on this. So at this point in the process, it's despite all the reassurance that we're espousing here, we did not feel that this should be something that's mandated. So, I mean, full disclosure, there are, for us to work in the hospital, there are state statutes of certain vaccines that we are mandated to take. So those are old vaccines that are well established. So it's not that some vaccines aren't mandatory in quotes, but this vaccine at this time is not recommended to be mandatory. It is your choice. Any other thoughts on that, guys and gals?
What I'll mention is that many of the MDPB members like you grew up in public safety. And what we recognize is that inherent in the work that you all do has been a sense of service, and that you all have really been first in line when our nation has needed help. And this vaccine is not envisioned ever that we're aware of to be mandatory. And certainly making this decision about the vaccine is yours first and foremost. It affects you first and foremost. But please know that this decision also affects the rest of the members of your community. It affects the other members of the state and our nation and the world in general. And that our decision to become vaccinated helps dampen and helps dampen the disease across the country and helps us respond to the disease across the country and the world in general. You know, I think it's fair to say that your sense of service, what you've done historically, has been inspiring to the MDPB members. And many of them have been offered this vaccine early on in the process because of their involvement in their careers as emergency physicians. And many MDPB members you see here have taken your lead and have already become vaccinated in an effort to help dampen this and exemplify their service and really attempt to help turn the tide of this pandemic.
Awesome. Well said. Matt, I got to ask you, are those your personal pictures of 9/11?
Yes.
Ground Zero?
Yeah.
Is it possible that you can catch this from the vaccine? This is one I hear over and over about flu vaccine that is specifically about flu vaccine. You do not catch flu from the flu vaccine, but doesn't it make you feel like you do sometimes, right? You know, and it's so hard when you get expected side effects of an immune response right after you get the vaccine that feel like familiar to the illness. How can you not make that connection, right? But that's not what's going on here. There's nothing in here that gives you the infection. There is no recipe, no science, nothing that cognitively puts together that you're catching the vaccine from this. You may feel your immune system alerting to the virus from this, right? And that alerting sensation may seem very parallel and familiar to what we say are the coronavirus symptoms, right? Because there is sort of that idea that initially when your body sees this, the process of alerting to it does feel familiar, right? But it is not the disease. I will say here, when I got my shot, my arm was sore, like sore than other vaccines that I've had. But I didn't feel anything else. And because I've done this deep dive, in some ways you'd say, well, isn't that a good thing you didn't feel any side effects? And we'll see. I'll tell you after my second booster of this in 21 days for the Pfizer that I got. I was actually a little disappointed, right? Because I would have been very reassured to feel those T cells alerting, you know, whatever version of them becoming alerted to coronavirus. If it had given me some body aches or some chills or something, that would have made me profoundly excited that it was working. So I trust it's working anyway, but I had minimal side effects. So anyway, that's my take on that. If you guys want to jump in.
So Tim, you remind us all that many of the things that we feel when we become ill with an infection, fevers, chills, the aches that can occur, those actually aren't the virus or bacteria per se. That's our body's immune system. and it's our immune system turning on, and it's our immune system attempting to fight off that infection. And because we're triggering the same immune system, we might actually feel some of those same symptoms. And we'll get to what all those symptoms are in a second. This is an important place perhaps to pause and answer Phil's question in more detail, which is that Phil, right, as we mentioned, you only get this portion of the mRNA. It's transiently expressed on your own cells. It's the same spike protein. Your body has the same immune response, but it's the immune response that's causing those symptoms, not an infection with the same virus, and therefore you cannot necessarily transmit the virus to someone else after you experience symptoms due to the vaccination. We're going to get into whether or not you can transmit, and you can be an asymptomatic carrier later on, but any mild symptoms immediately in proximity to the vaccine that are related itself are not
this question, is it possible that I test positive for COVID after the vaccination? So the first part to this answer is, my next sort of question to the question would be, well, what type of test are you asking about, right? So there are two types of coronavirus tests right now, you'll remember. One is a PCR test. And the way that works, that's the traditional send out. That's not your Binax now test that some of you are lucky enough to have in your EMS agencies, which is an antigen-based test, okay? So the PCR send out test that takes a little longer traditionally at this point to get the result, that is actually looking for pieces of the virus. That's how that test works. It's why it's actually useful and reliable in asymptomatic people that are being tested. You can use a PCR test. The PCR test will not be positive after your vaccination, okay? Because there are no pieces of the virus. It doesn't test for that spike protein or pieces of that spike protein. That's not how the PCR test works. So we'll be able to use the PCR type test for the COVID to make sure that you haven't somehow become infected after the test. We don't know right now whether the Binax Now or other antigen-based COVID tests, those are the rapid ones where you put the drops in and it looks like a pregnancy test with the 2 lines on it. We don't know whether that will give us false positives after the vaccination. So that is a hot topic of study right now. So stay tuned.
And then there's a third type of test, Tim. There's the antibody test, right? What do you know about the antibody tests?
Oh, I need you to jump in. I don't know if I can answer that.
Well, I think your pause in asking what type of test is an important pause to also ask when it comes to the antibody tests, because there are different antibody tests on the market right now that test for different parts of the coronavirus. And if your antibody test in question happens to test for the spike protein, there's a chance that you could test positive on an antibody test because your body has made antibodies to the spike protein after receiving the vaccines. There are other antibody tests, though, that exist for coronavirus that test for different parts of the virus, not just the spike protein. And if you ever wanted to see if you've been exposed after getting vaccination, you can use those types of antibody tests to see if there is an exposure.
I just got pinged with a question myself. Please, it's going to be a little hard for me to monitor them, but somebody got a text through to me. I may miss future texts as I talk because I'm not that good at multitasking, but it was, if we develop symptoms after the vaccine, will we need to quarantine? So that's actually a really good question. And I'm very curious. That's a process that's underway for Maine EMS. It is in place for Maine General where I work, but they didn't give us a script. They just said, if you get symptoms, call workplace health. And I think their intent is to look at those questions case by case. And depending how severe or classic they are, they're going to tease out whether they are concerned that you may have developed symptoms just before or at the same time as getting the vaccine from a true exposure versus this is just a mild immune response to the vaccine. And as you can imagine, that's going to be that's a tough one to tease out on a checklist or a guidance. So kudos, and I tip my hat to Maine EMS trying to figure out the best way forward on this. So I guess I got to say it's going to depend on what exactly you're feeling. But I got to be cautious here and defer back to Matt and Sam on where we're at on Maine EMS on this.
So Tim's right. There's a effort underway to try to create a process to consider symptoms after vaccine. We remain really cautious anytime someone develops symptoms. The federal CDC has helped us, and they've created some matrices to consider how to approach symptoms after receiving the vaccine. The important thing to recognize is the symptoms that do occur after both of the two vaccines. We'll get into this in a little bit. They typically occur in 1 to 2 days, and they typically last for 1 to 3 days. And so one of the ways that we've started to consider doing this is trying to find a way to vaccinate the workforces immediately before they have a short break in their schedule. So for folks who work a set schedule with a day on, day off, day on, 4 off, or some iteration thereof, trying to organize your vaccinations at the beginning of a period of time that you have off is one way to start to try to protect the workforce, along with diligent monitoring of symptoms and transparent reporting of those symptoms to your workforce and ongoing tracking of symptoms after they develop. But as Tim mentioned, there are federal resources and guides to help with that, and we're working on state resources and guides to assist with that as well. Real quickly, let's get to one of Josh's questions. Joshua Stewart asks, are you aware of any legal backing to an employer requiring either of these two EUA vaccines for continued employment? Joshua, I'm not aware that anyone is mandating or found a legal way to mandate either of these two vaccines. In fact, in order to receive these vaccines under the EUA process, you as an individual have to agree to do it. So good question. But again, it comes down to your decision.
Oh, great question. So if I already had COVID, should I now get the vaccine? And it kind of comes down to, aren't I immune, right? I mean, if I got the infection, why do I need to get extra immunity, right? And this is interesting. There's still a lot we don't know exactly about the way this infection works. But there's some data now hinting that the coronavirus may be so malicious that it's able to work against long-term memory of its infection. And I'm not sure we understand. We just have seen that there are a handful, limited amount of people that have become reinfected, right? So we know, and we've documented case reports of that. And then in addition, for those that have been infected that we've been lucky enough to study their immune response, we think we can see evidence that that immunity is lessening and waning and decreasing after about 60 to 90 days. This is early data. This needs to be verified. It needs to be clarified, but it's suggesting a vulnerability here that maybe if you get natural immunity to COVID, coronavirus, meaning you get the infection, that it's possible that your immune system's memory of that is not long-standing. And that personally is awful, right? It just shows, again, my dark respect for this virus. We'll see how this plays out. The hope is that the vaccine will give us longer memory than the natural infection. And again, this plays out infection by infection, right? So something like flu, your memory doesn't last because the flu itself mutates, right? So you have to get a immunization every year. There are other types of infections where the natural memory and immunity is long-standing, right? So it all goes by, you kind of got to go case by case on different infections on this. And we're just early. This is one of the limitations. Even though we were able to do a tremendous push on vaccine development, this is an area of knowledge around the infection that is going to need more time. So the hope is that the vaccine will give you longer lasting immunity than the true infection is my hope, but we don't know yet. But the answer to the question is yes. Because of that doubt, don't rest your laurels on the fact that you had coronavirus, were lucky enough to get through it, right? And your natural immunity, it does not seem is robust enough to rely on it without getting the vaccine on top of it. But we do want you to wait 90 days, 3 months after the illness before you consider taking the vaccine.
I think that's a really important point, Tim, which is that there are documented cases of reinfection. There is some short-term immunity, but that immunity is not long-lasting, as you mentioned. And the CDC is recommending that it is feasible to wait up to 90 days after infection, but it's not mandatory to wait 90 days. You can still be vaccinated after you've had COVID. And that for someone or who has provided the vaccine prior to their 90-day window passing. There's only one instance we're aware of right now in which it's really highly recommended to wait 90 days, and that's if you've received monoclonal antibodies. So if you've received monoclonal antibodies, the current recommendation is to wait for at least 90 days until receiving the vaccine.
Any questions around that? I know Matt broke up a little bit through that, so I hope that most of that got through.
Should I repeat that, Tim? Sorry about breaking up.
Yeah, I think you got some of the audio was breaking up slightly, so just I would summarize it.
Well, yeah, I'll wait. I'll summarize it and say that we do know there are cases of reinfection that's been reported. We speculated about that in the spring. We've seen that play out more definitively now, and in both of these two studies with Moderna and Pfizer saw folks who were seropositive for the infection to then become infected later on. So we do know there can be cases of reinfection. As Tim mentioned, this is an insidious disease because it dampens the immune response. And right now, the CDC is saying that it's reasonable to wait up to 90 days, which we think is at least the longest amount of time you can expect to have protection from the virus. But it's key to say that it is reasonable to wait, but you don't have to wait when it comes to vaccination after an active infection. If you get provided the vaccine prior to your 90 days, it is recommended that you receive the vaccine. There's no downside or danger to you in doing that. And it might be advisable just to maintain your space in line and maintain your priority. The only instance in which it really is important to wait that entire 90 days is if you've received monoclonal antibodies, because in that situation, you have pre-existing antibodies to coronavirus, including spike antibodies, and it might dampen your response to the vaccine. So it's important to wait for a minimum of 90 days until getting your vaccine after receiving monoclonal antibodies. As I'm talking, it looks like there's a whole bunch of questions that just popped up. Why would immunity from the vaccine last any longer than immunity from natural immunity? From natural immunity is still the immune system's killer cells learning about the virus or its RNA in both processes, right? So Ben, the reality is, as Tim mentioned, this virus is malicious, and it has found ways to dampen the immune response because of all the other stuff inside the virus. It's been able to dampen the immune response. So there is an immune response, but it's not as powerful and it is not as long lasting as the immune response we're seeing from the vaccine. We don't exactly know how long the vaccine's immune response lasts, but it seems so far to perhaps last longer than that of the virus. Sam mentions there's a question for Laura Downing on Facebook Live. Do people with autoimmune disorders need to be concerned about receiving the vaccine? We have received a couple questions about that, and perhaps this is a good time to answer the question. It's not necessarily that folks with autoimmune disorders need to be concerned about receiving the vaccine. The CDC has said that folks with autoimmune disorders or immunocompromised states should receive the vaccine because both of those conditions are very high risk if you were to become infected with coronavirus. And in the 70,000+ folks, including the the 35 plus thousand people who were enrolled in the vaccine, there were a number of folks with immune diseases, autoimmune diseases, and immunocompromised states who received the vaccine and did fine from a safety profile and appear to have been protected as much as the general population was. So there's no recommendation to hold back from the vaccine if you have autoimmune disorders, if you're taking immune modulating medications, if you have immune affecting illnesses. There is a possibility you may not have as much of a response to the vaccine, but that was not that did not appear clinically significant in the large trials we have right now. Verna O'Neill asks, if you get the full vaccine, could you then swab positive for COVID-19? And can you then transmit the virus asymptomatic or not? Verna, we're going to touch base on this question in just a little bit, I believe. In a couple of slides, we're going to touch base on that, so hold on. Seth answers, one part of the difference may be that there are 2 exposures in the vaccination process as opposed to the illness. Another may be that natural immunity may rely upon different parts of the virus, not the spike protein. Thank you for that, Seth. Sam mentions there's a question from Chris. Do people with autoimmune disorders need to be concerned about receiving this vaccine? I think we answered that. Great question, Chris. Thank you for that. A number of other folks have asked that as well. Another question from Chris, are there any pre-existing conditions that people may have that could result in serious side effects from the vaccine? There is one that we're aware of, that is folks who have had allergic reactions to this vaccine, other components of the vaccine, or other vaccines, and we'll talk more about that when we get to that slide, Chris. Thank you. And then thanks to Seth and Kelly for answering some of Verna's questions. There's another question in the chat asking, will there be a titer test to verify effective status of the vaccine? I've heard some conversation that immune compromised folks may need a 3rd dose. So that's a very good question. The answer is that right now there is absolutely a way to test your immune response. That was part of the phase 2 trials for both of these vaccines. In fact, phase 2 trials, one of the goals of phase 2 trials is to gauge what's the proper dose of the vaccine based on the immune response. And there'll be more to come with that as we get further into this vaccination process. We're going to learn more about how to actually gauge the proper response to the vaccine, and that may or may not include actually checking titers of antibodies in your system. That's one of the things we don't quite know right now. We're learning more about that as we speak. There might be an opportunity to do that in the future, but that's not something that's immediately going to occur. There's another question that just got asked about, if I have gotten the shots, how long will I need to wear a mask? And if you don't mind, we're going to answer that in just a few slides. Thank you for that question. In fact, why don't we go ahead and answer that right now, Tim? You want to go ahead and do that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is sort of one of the biggest questions for me, because I mean, am I the only one that's sick and tired of wearing a mask all the time, right? Of keeping 6 feet away from people, of hammering you as a medical director to do the same. It's absolutely exhausting. The problem is, one of the other sinister, menacing characteristics of this infection is the asymptomatic spread, meaning people spread this without having any symptoms. So they have no idea that they're infecting people around them because they feel fine. And that's a little bit, just for full disclosure, that's a little bit of the waffling you felt in the beginning on masking, where we said you don't need to wear a mask in the beginning, and then the public health experts said, hold on a minute, yeah, you do have to wear one. That reflected that discovery later in the process of this pandemic, that it spread by folks that didn't feel it. We didn't know that in the beginning. And it's one of the, it's just one, this is why this thing is so evil in my mind, right? And why, again, I'm happy to have an attack mode for it. The problem is we don't know how effective, whether that vaccine blocks spreading this with no symptoms, because the studies, those phase 3 studies with the tens of thousands, the 30,000 plus people that were studied, they didn't ask that question. So that study was not designed to discover whether people could spread this without feeling any symptoms after they had the vaccine. So it's an open question. It's very possible that this vaccine protects you from getting symptoms, and symptoms like severe symptoms, having to go into the ICU, having to be put on a ventilator, dying from this infection. We're very confident that we can see with the information that we have that it's effective in protecting you from that. We have no idea yet whether it allows you to still spread the infection, like catch the infection and then spread it without feeling symptoms. And that's very possible. That it could be that this vaccine is wonderful at protecting you from getting sick, but it's vulnerable and ineffective of protecting you from spreading it to others. So that worry is what's driving our recommendation to say, for the sake of everyone around you, you have to keep doing with everything that we're doing now. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for myself. I'm sorry for you. I'm frustrated that that's the truth, but there is absolutely no information that you are safe to stop masking, stop socially distancing after you get the vaccine. It is not a get out of jail free card. It is hopefully a get out of the ICU card, right, for you, but it very well may be that you could still spread this. So we have to mask up for the sake of everyone else until we know more, right? And maybe we'll discover that it is safe after you have the vaccine, that you are safe and you are protected from spreading this to others without feeling symptoms, but we do not know that yet. So let me let others jump in.
So I think there's an important public health definition to think about here. The public health experts will talk about infections versus disease. Infections are having a virus and being able to spread the virus or have the virus in your body. Disease is having the manifestations of that infection. And what we know from these vaccines is that these vaccines, as you'll see in a bit, do a tremendous job cutting down on disease. What these studies haven't told us yet or not is whether or not these vaccines cut down on infection, and asymptomatic infection in particular. There were a few small sites in both of these studies that did do active swabbing of the study participants, but the numbers are kind of small right now. And what we know is that for the Moderna vaccine, it appears as if there was a reduction in asymptomatic infection about 60% of the time. And in the Pfizer vaccine, it was more like 50% of the time. But those are very small studies and early information, enough to say that it's not time to start taking masks off. The bottom line, David, is that we'll probably be wearing masks until the vaccine campaign is complete and we achieve that concept of herd immunity. And it's only at that point in time that we'll be able to make informed decisions about our masking practices, our PPE practices, et cetera. There's a really neat graphic that some of you might have seen here, this concept of the Swiss cheese. You might have seen it actually associated with the concepts of risk and quality, this idea that there is the Swiss cheese model of risk, that an accident can happen when multiple layers of a system start to have breakdowns. I like this model really nice because it really sort of points out some of the public health tried and true strategies against an infectious disease or against a pandemic, things that we personally are responsible for, like our masking practices, our hand hygiene, our cough etiquette, our PPE, our screening for PUIs. And then it talks about shared responsibility, being outside, distancing, and vaccination being a part of that. But you'll notice that no one piece of the puzzle has any more import than others. They're all important in protecting us. And a metaphor that a couple of us have been thinking about is our other personal protective gear, our turnout gear, for instance. And if you think about it, on the far left of your screen, you see someone in a helmet and a turnout jacket and a mask. None of us would enter a fire with limited turnout gear. None of us would enter a fire without our entire complement of protection. And think of COVID like a fire. We want all of our protection. And it's that second, it's that third from the left picture with the firefighter with entire turnout gear, which is what we're doing right now. It's our defensive posture right now. It's our helmet, our turnout gear, our SCBA, boots, gloves, Nomex, et cetera, et cetera. This vaccine offers us an opportunity not only to be defensive against the virus, but to become offensive. And our offensive stance in a fire are hose, water, foam, tools, venting, etc. The offensive posture against this virus is our vaccination. But we would never enter the fire with just our tools, with just a hose, with just water, with just ventilation. We'd still want our defensive posture, our entire PPE against fire as we continue to battle the fire. And the same will hold true for the vaccine and for this pandemic, especially in the short term. We expect to know more in somewhere between 6 to 9 months. It'll probably take us that amount of time to understand what's going to happen in the future and how much protection we gain, what the duration of the protection we have here for a bit. But just like the metaphor of a fire, by becoming vaccinated, there's a hope that we can start to dampen the fire, taking fuel away from the fire by protecting ourselves from the virus as much as possible. And with vaccine and continued masking, we start to remove the fuel of the fire. Anything else to add to that, Tim?
No, I love it. I appreciate the analogies.
Let's pause here because there are a couple different questions that have popped in either to me privately or to the whole group. There's one question that says, it's my understanding that, a couple more questions here. It's my understanding that if you've tested positive and had symptoms, then recovered, you can still test positive for up to 90 days. Is this correct? Are you contagious during those 90 days? That's a really great question about testing and how long the duration of the test, your positive test lasts. There is some data on how long you shed virus, how long you are potentially infectious. But please remember that right now, the CDC's guidelines are that you wait a combination of 10 days from your positive test and 24 hours out from the last symptoms that required management, active management, before you're safe to enter into exit out of your quarantine period. So the CDC's guidance around that would suggest that there's significant decrease in your infectiousness, but we'll have to look into how long, if there is a longer duration of your test positivity after that. There's a second question about if you are asymptomatic with COVID-19, get the vaccine not knowing you are COVID positive and then have a full-blown disease, will the vaccine mechanism mount a response, or is it up to your organic immune system to, quote, carry the water for recovery? And then Kelly answered, we're not quite sure yet. There have been a few cases just this week of just that. Kelly, do you want to explain that further?
Yeah, Matt. So, there weren't any, at least as far as I read, there weren't any specific cases like that came up in the vaccine trials. But since we've done this big rollout, both in the UK and in the US over the last week or so, there have been a few cases where people describe symptoms after getting the vaccine that are consistent with an immune response. So that's the reactogenicity that we expect and that we want to see from a response to a vaccine. Then those people got better after 12 to 24 hours, the initial symptoms just being something like their fatigue or headache or maybe a sore arm. And then 2 days or 3 days later, developed symptoms much more consistent with infection, where they were having high fevers, they're having chills, rigors, very severe arthralgias and myalgia, so much more significant symptoms. And those were persisting. So at that time, they went and got tested for COVID and were found to be COVID positive. Again, we know that you will not test COVID positive from just having the vaccine. So at that time, it was clear that those patients likely were exposed to COVID around the same time that they had the vaccine or even before or just after, and developed symptoms of COVID-19 following vaccination that would suggest that they were infectious around the same time that they had the vaccine. So they may potentially have had COVID at the time they were vaccinated and were asymptomatic. And so that's why I say we do not know, because this has all just happened in the last week with this rollout, that there hasn't been enough determination of when they were actually exposed, when they likely developed infection. But testing positive for COVID cannot come from the vaccine itself. So it's clear that those few people had COVID, a COVID infection around this time of their vaccination.
And that's, Verna, that's a really great question. We're going to be learning more about those circumstances as we start seeing the vaccine campaign progress. Right now, the best that we know is that as long as you are not, you don't put the vaccination team at risk because you're still having active ongoing symptoms, you could then complete your series of vaccines. You have to understand more as time goes on what your duration of response, the amount of response you have, and the duration of response you have in that circumstance. But again, the current recommendation is to complete your vaccination schedule as long as your symptoms are abated, you've followed the CDC guidelines, and you're ready to come out of quarantine. We've kind of touched on this already, but I just want to make sure we reiterate this. We don't quite know if you can still infect others. We're going to learn more about that. The early studies suggest there is perhaps some protection, but not as much protection from the disease itself. And this is one of the ongoing questions around with how long protection lasts that we're going to continue looking at throughout the continued experience with the vaccine. These are some of the questions that both the CDC and the FDA and other large bodies are continuing to ask of the vaccine manufacturers, continuing to require that they answer these questions for us as we move along. Because we don't know, it's very important for us to have humility around this disease and recognize that our PPE, our universal masking, our other protective postures will remain important until we have the answers to these questions. Tim, anything else to add to that, or anything you want to say about pregnancy and lactation?
The one thing I want to reiterate on the question is that once you get the vaccine, there is this magnetic draw, and my worry is that you could decrease your vigilance for masking, right? You know, you could just take it down a notch, not be quite as good at masking and social distancing because you get so much reassurance from having the vaccine. And if it's true that you still are infectious if you got infected, right? Meaning that you would be blocked from having symptoms, but you could still spread it. If that's a truth that plays out over time, then we could create a situation where if we weren't diligent and continued with our social distancing and our masking after the vaccine, that we could make this worse. Does that make sense? So if enough of us had that false reassurance that, oh, I'm okay, but we don't attend to the fact that I could still be a threat to others, then we could increase the spread by decreasing our defensive stance on. So I want to reiterate that you really got to fight that very human response to getting vaccinated, right? You know, so you just have to make sure that that truth is in your head and that you attend to it and be responsible. The other part to this is, even if that's true and that's an awful reality that we could still be infectious without feeling the disease after the vaccine, still though, this will work with time. If enough of us take this vaccine, then we will crush this disease, even if that truth exists, right? It'll just take a little longer, right? So you will get to a place where you can return to a norm here once we have enough of herd immunity from enough of us getting the vaccine or getting the illness. So it's just going to take longer. So that's my only addition.
You know, Tim, as you're talking, you reminded me that there are some vaccines out there that are 100% protective. Vaccines like like tetanus, for instance, is 100% protective against the tetanus disease, right? This vaccine is highly protective, but not 100% protective. And there have been some questions yesterday about like, well, you know, only 2% of people die, so what's the big deal? Only 20% of folks can enter the hospital, so what's the big deal? I think I'll tell you my personal take on this. The big deal is that 2% is a very high number when spread across a large part of the population. 2% of it includes your family members is tragic. 20% of it includes your family members is horrific. And the reality is that this is much more than the flu. This is much more than the cold. COVID-19 is a microvascular disease that robs your microvascular beds of their functionality. That includes your lungs, which is where we've spent a lot of time focusing on, but it also includes the brain, the heart, the kidneys, other microvascular beds. That's why we see strokes, MIs, et cetera, et cetera. And personally, we all enjoy a certain lifestyle that's really predicated on our cognitive abilities and our physical abilities. COVID-19 can rob us of that. So I think it's important to recognize this is not 100% preventive. It's really, really protective, not 95%. But one out of this that I personally want to play out. I feel like I want to do all I can to prevent this disease. And if that includes vaccination and continued protective postures like universal masking and PPE, et cetera, personally, that feels very important to me.
Agreed.
Do you want to tackle the pregnancy slide, Tim?
Sure. So the big question here, and thank you, somebody just popped this into the chat room too, so thank you for bringing it up, about if I am pregnant or I am breastfeeding, or my family member is, or somebody I care deeply about, or a friend, do we recommend that you get vaccinated with that? Do we have enough information to know that it's safe? And this is a real dilemma because we excluded pregnant folks from the initial studies. And that's a common reality of these studies. But there are a small number of people that didn't know they were pregnant or got pregnant during the study who were participating in it. And we're watching that small group of people very closely. And we have not seen any ill effects thus far. The other interesting part about this is there was a significant outcry from the obstetrician, gynecology, and folks taking care of pregnant women that said, do not put a block on this. There is nothing that we can see cognitively, thinking it through the science, that is a threat to the pregnancy based on this vaccine. That's not true with all vaccines. So attenuated vaccines, attenuated live vaccines, and what that means is essentially they take a live virus and they cripple it. They do something to it scientifically to make it not able to. They're worried that those actually, they don't say they recommend that you take those vaccines when you're pregnant. It's theoretical, but the worry is with that type of vaccine, this is different, right? And so the OBGYN community said, please allow people to take this if they so choose, and do not put a contraindication or a block or a warning on it. Because they felt strongly that the risks of the disease far outweighed the risk of the vaccine. Now, obviously, we're looking at this closely. We want to verify that that thinking is true. And I think this is a very personal decision, just like your decision is, whether you take this vaccine or not. And I think with this one, it's really important that you make contact with whoever the medical community is that's guiding you through that pregnancy or during that breastfeeding period. And reach out to them so that you can have this discussion. But they were so strong in the recommendation, they said, if that takes too long and your place in line comes up, the recommendation from the OBGYN community is think hard about getting this vaccine. So complicated answer, very personal answer. But I think I'll sort of pause it at that. And I have another thought that I lost track of that I'll think of in just a sec. So let me let you guys jump in after that.
John, or anyone else who's really contemplating this and wondering about this, the QR code at the bottom left of your screen is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists statement on these vaccines and the technology. I'll just reiterate what Tim said, which is that it's really helpful to talk to your obstetrician or whoever's walking you through your pregnancy about this. And all of the obstetrician community has been following, tracking, and interested in this, and I'm sure they'll be able to help guide you through these questions.
My understanding is that the outcry to protect this as an option was led by pregnant immunization expert scientists and physicians. Those that were pregnant, that understand infectious disease, were the loudest to say, do not block me from being able to get this because I want it, right? So for whatever that means, is that anecdotal story, those pregnant experts said, it's important for us to have the option to take this because in their expert opinion, they wanted it. So again, risk benefit is always the balance that we're striking here.
And Seth has reminded us there's a lot of other tools besides the ACOG or the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists. There's, if you Google ACOG or MFM or ASRM, ABM, JAMA, and Bay State COVID Pregnancy Decision Tool, you'll find some other resources there as well.
Excellent. So next slide here, if it's okay to move on, is that can I, if I'm hesitant, I haven't come to a decision, but my place in line comes up. Am I okay to wait until I feel confident moving ahead, or at least in a place where I am willing to move ahead? If I haven't decided yet, do you think I can get it later? And of course you can defer this decision. Again, the decision is yours. This is a personal decision. That you need to have the freedom in our mind to make it for yourself. But there is a bit of a dilemma here because there are other people waiting in line after you that aren't tier 1A first responders or ICU docs and nurses and staff or ER or COVID ward folks that are anxiously waited. They have already decided, they themselves are being exposed and they want your shot, right? So I think it's a little hard here because yes, there will be another time you can get this, but we don't know when that is. That space in line is very valuable here. So other folks are waiting anxiously, and when their time comes up, they're going to want the shot, right? And there are plenty of those that have made this decision already. So there's a balance here we're trying to strike to say, of course you can defer it, but we just don't know when your space in line will come up again, just to be full disclosure and brutally transparent on this. So let me have others jump in on that.
I don't know if there's much else to say. I agree with Tim completely there. This is your decision. The only thing you jeopardize is perhaps a space in line. But it is your decision and you need to feel comfortable with this. So whatever you need to do to feel comfortable, that's your choice.
Full disclosure, Maine General for me, who offered me the Pfizer immunization as working in the emergency department as a physician, I was told you get your place in line and you're offered it and you can take it. If you're not ready to take it, we're going to move on and we're going to go through the rest of the folks that are in line before we offer it up to you again, because they felt that was only fair. And I got to say, for my primary care colleagues that are seeing more volume of COVID than I am, because most of the testing is happening in our primary care communities now. I really feel like they deserve it because they need to get it as quick as they possibly can, right? They're just seeing higher volume. I'm seeing sicker patients than they are, but they're seeing higher volume right now if I'm comparing local to local. So complicated answer here.
There's a question from Randall about police, fire, EMD, other elements of the public safety system, where they are at. They are, so all of public safety is highly prioritized in Maine. The reality is that we would have loved to have enough vaccine to vaccinate every single frontline provider immediately. So that would be every single physician, nurse, EMT, AEMT, paramedic, law enforcement officer, firefighter, and EMD, any other person in the healthcare system that comes into contact with these patients, such as techs, folks who work in our environmental services, our secretaries who are in the same units, our social workers who are interacting with these patients. We would have loved to be able to have enough doses of vaccine to do everyone on day one. The reality is that across the country, we've had to triage heavily. We've had to make some very difficult decisions. We are blessed in Maine to have a very close relationship with Maine CDC, which has afforded us the opportunity to remain in the top tiers of this process and this rollout. The way it looks right now is that we're getting a number of vaccines as soon as they're made available, and then we'll go to EMS clinicians first, and immediately thereafter, they will go to police, fire, and EMD. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, great question. So it really comes down, rubber meets the road here. Are they safe, right? You know, my personal decision was absolutely they were safe for me to take it. But that only came after I did this whole process in my own mind of weighing risks and benefits. It was not an impulsive or not well thought out decision-making process. Oh, great. So this brings back the question about the allergic reactions. And these are nice highlight headline clips here of two folks in the UK and then someone in Alaska, maybe a second. There may be even more since this slide was made, but not many more. That they were worried that they had some reactions shortly after being injected with the vaccine that appeared to be anaphylactoid or anaphylaxis type reactions. So the first thing I took away from this was that's not a lot of people, right? You're talking 3 to 4 for tens of thousands of folks who have been exposed to this vaccine. So I was overall at the 30,000 foot view, I'm very pleased that it's been so far and few between. But there are some individuals that may be reactive to some of those components. Thankfully, there are not many components in this vaccine, but some of those may be that people have a vulnerability to an allergic reaction to them. None of these have been long-lived. It was only the person in Alaska that got one injection of epinephrine, but was admitted anyway overnight. And the other folks, I don't even think went to the hospital in the UK, but I would have others correct me if they know more information about this. I don't know how much that reflects our healthcare systems, right? And how we respond to this, but these did appear to those that were clinically in the decision-making process of caring for those patients at the time that they evaluated them, enough for them to give epinephrine. That's really all I can say about this. And I think it has not led to a recommendation that if you have a history of anaphylaxis or severe allergic reactions to something, whether that be bee stings or peanuts or something else, that if you've globally had this type of reaction, that should be a contraindication to this vaccine. They have not made that connection. So it's only if you have these unfortunate folks, the 3 to 4 that they are going to recommend that they not have a second dose because they're worried that they may have reacted to something in the first dose and it would not be safe for them to take the second. So if you are unlucky enough to have a severe allergic reaction to this vaccine, they would not recommend that you get the booster. Or if you have a history to something that you and your physician or your primary care team connects to one of the components and you have a history of an allergic reaction to one of the components of the vaccine, then we would say it's not safe for you to be exposed to that component. But that's it.
So Josh asks a question if there's a way we can share a link to the ingredients of both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. We have a document prepared for folks who are interested called the Maine EMS MDPB Vaccine General Reference and Talking Points Guide. I see Mark Minkler on the Zoom right now. Mark, if you don't mind, you did a very nice job pasting that resource into our chat function yesterday. Josh, in that we have listed all of the components, the very deliberate scientific name of all the components in the Pfizer vaccine. And as soon as we have the same information from Moderna, we'll update it to include those as well. So you will be able to see exactly what those are.
I do think that decision is worthy of a discussion with your primary care or your allergist if you're lucky enough to have one, just to make sure is your reaction to whatever that is enough to that the risks outweigh the benefits. That's a very personal decision here that I think individuals that are worried they bump up against that risk should have that discussion with one of your medical team members to help guide you on that.
But please note, for folks who have any of the allergies in this green section, foods, pets, insects, venom, environmental, latex, other allergies that aren't vaccine relatable, and any of these other criteria, these do not preclude you from receiving the vaccine. What it does do is it does lengthen the observation time from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. And it's in these two groups that you're either asked to do a risk assessment with your primary care physician or another person with whom you have a therapeutic medical relationship with, or to avoid the vaccine in this situation. If you've had a severe reaction to the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine or any of its constituent ingredients. Now, please know, this is all from Pfizer. This is based on last week's experience and the UK experience, which occurred about a week there before that. We may learn more about Moderna as the Moderna rollout occurs, and we'll update these resources as we do learn from Moderna. I think there is another chat in here from Verna. It says, are we certain this EUA vaccine is not a human challenge to test the vaccine? Who is leading the post-vaccination safety surveillance after the 8-week study period? Verna, that's a good question. Please know that there's a number of people who are continuing to watch over safety and surveillance. That includes the FDA, that includes the CDC, it includes the manufacturers as well. All of them are highly invested in making sure this is safe and effective. And this is not necessarily we're not guinea pigs, we're not test subjects, and we're not part of a trial as you get this vaccine, but your experience is important, and watching your experience is important to all federal and private bodies that are overseeing this vaccine process. Sam has left some resources in here. Mark has put the resource for the talking points, but Sam's also put the Moderna EUA in there that has components 11, and the Pfizer EUA that has components as well in there. Someone on an iPhone named Mike asks, this might be a better question to my oncologist, but is there any concerns to getting the vaccine to us with cancer? I'm not sure if my treatment plan will determine this is safe. So Mike, thank you so much for asking that question. What I can say again is that in the large population groups, the 35,000 plus folks who were enrolled, there were folks with many different types of diseases, including cancers. And this appeared to be safe and effective in those instances. But I do believe that if you have very specific questions about your personal medical history, that is very important to have discussions with your personal healthcare providers to walk through those decisions. There might be contingencies of any person's specific disease and where you're at in the treatment, and your doctor would be probably the best to guide you through that process. So thank you so much for asking that question. And I really think you're on the right page when you mentioned talking to your oncologist about that. Someone asks also, sorry, I think my question got buried the first time. Stephen, I'm sorry if we missed it the first time. Thank you for asking it again. In regards to allergic reactions and other side effects, is there a way to pre-treat yourself to help prevent some of this? For example, taking an antihistamine prior to receiving a dose. That's a really good question. Right now, I've not seen recommendations from the CDC to try to preempt or prevent by pre-treating with antihistamines, for instance. So I can't tell you that that is recommended or advisable at this point in time, but if we hear anything about that, we certainly will publicize that and make that well known. Again, I think if you do fall into either of the two categories here in the yellow, so folks who had have had severe allergic reactions to other vaccines, not including the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, or if you've had a history of severe allergic reaction to an injectable therapy, it's important in those situations to really talk it through with your private physician, talk through the benefits, the risks, and the immediate potential consequences based on your personal health history. But if you fall into the green category, there's been no recommendation that I'm aware of that suggests you should pre-treat yourself in an effort to ameliorate the possibility of allergic reactions, in large part because as we've seen with the 30,000+ folks enrolled in both trials, those folks who had some of these green box characteristics did not have significant consequences or reactions to the disease immediately. So thank you for that question, Stephen.
Hey, Matt, can I just add something in when we're talking about pre-treatment?
Please, yeah.
So I know we're about to get into just a little bit more in depth of some of the symptoms of immune system activation that you may experience after vaccination. And some of those are things that people might normally take, like Tylenol or ibuprofen for. And there's some debate as to whether or not pre-treatment may affect how your body responds to a vaccine just in general. So there's no recommendation against taking it after you get symptoms, but there is some debate as to whether or not we may see some change in immune response if you were to pre-treat when you don't have any symptoms before getting your vaccine. So just something else to think about as far as pre-treatment with things like, in addition to, like Matt said, antihistamines, but also with things like Tylenol and ibuprofen.
Thanks for adding that, Kelly. Tim, do you want to walk us through the rest of the safety discussion?
Sure. Are we going to the next slide, or are we doing it from this?
Well, so this is the slide that's after this one, and it introduces us to this slide.
Okay, great. So, so what this is listing is for the Moderna vaccine, which is the vaccine that's dedicated to EMS right now. That's the one that we're going to be offering EMS and fire and first response as far as police and EMD. This is a summary of what people felt as their immune system was responding to the vaccine, right? And what you can see here is all the symptoms listed: arthralgia, which is muscle aches, fatigue, fever, headache. Actually, arthralgia is joint aches. Sorry, myalgia is muscle aches, but I think it would feel the same to me, whether it's my joints or my muscles. Body aches. And then what you can see is that they try to illustrate it as mild, moderate, or severe. The only thing that bought severe categorizations was local symptom. I think that's your arm hurting where you got the shot. And the rest of it was just mild or moderate. You can clearly see that it was the second dose, the one that comes 28 days after the first, where people felt more symptoms as opposed to the first. And I guess that makes sense, right? You've already developed some memory, and then you get introduced again to this. And so your immune system is now primed and ready, and you feel a more robust immune response as it gains even more deeper memory and deeper ability to fight this off. So that's sort of a graph version of what you can expect maybe to feel. What you can also see when you dive into a dose group, it says 25 micrograms and then 100 micrograms. This dose is 100 micrograms. So this is just an early slide of the study that involved that phase 2, I believe, dosing question and answer here. They picked the 100 microgram dose.
We used this phase 1 trial information because it was the best graphically representative, and it also is very similar to the phase 3 information that we have available, but the graphics look better here.
Excellent. Again, I got to say, personally, the more I feel of this, the more reassured I would be that I'm ready to go. So this is the Pfizer display from their information that is an alternative. The other vaccine that's right now. This one is the one that we've been offered in the hospital system, as opposed to the Moderna, which you will be offered in the EMS system or the first response system, at least first round here. So it looks like very similar description of symptoms after the injection for some people. Pain at the injection site is by far the most common. And anecdotally, from all the folks I've talked to, this is what my nurses and docs partners have said. Yeah, I felt pain, but minimal other symptoms is what we found locally. And that also reflects it here. But very similar profile of symptoms. And again, why is that? It's because your immune system is responding the same way to this, right? Whether it's the Moderna or the Pfizer. So that reflects in the data here.
The FDA uses a graded system to try to figure out exactly how severe the symptoms were. They use a 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 are considered mild to moderate. Grade 3 is considered severe, and the definition of severe is that it limits your activities that day. And then grade 4 is a response that requires evaluation, emergent evaluation, or hospitalization. The important thing to know is that there were only a number of grade 3 events that rose over the 2% threshold that they consider frequent. Those included things like headache, and they included things like fatigue for the Pfizer vaccine. And I believe it was also arthralgias and myalgias for the Moderna vaccine. Those rose above that 2% threshold. It's also important to recognize that in the review of all of the patients, there were no grade 4 reactions that were referable to the vaccine. There were some folks who had reactions, but they were spread equally across, or there are some events that were considered grade 4 events, but they were spread equally across the placebo and the vaccine group, and in hindsight weren't necessarily attributed to the vaccine itself. There were also a couple deaths amongst participants in the trial, but those deaths, again, were not vaccine-related deaths. But in all transparency, the vaccine study group reports those things. Those were things like motor vehicle accident-related deaths. There were some other deaths that, again, were not vaccine-related. So these are considered, in the grand scheme of things, to be very safe. But folks typically do feel symptoms as their immune system is turned on.
I think what I pulled away at 30,000 feet from both these was that it was somewhere between 1 to 3% that felt like they had to take 1 to 2 days off of work after the shot. That's it. 1 to 3 per 100. Which just for me, preparing to how many sick calls am I going to have to get called into the ER for amongst my colleagues, that was very reassuring for me, right? Okay, so it looks like I'm not going to have to jump in and do an overnight shift that I didn't plan for. Or for the same for you folks doing staffing, it looks like it's very low numbers. With that said, though, I think it's prudent to plan, like Matt said in the very beginning, to get this vaccine for the sake of your colleagues that are going to have to cover for you if you are that rare person that needs to take a day off, that you give that day off on your schedule. Hopefully you have the control enough to be able to say, I'm going to do this when I know I have a day or two coming up off. We don't all have that privilege. That's the reality here. But if you do have that privilege of your schedule, it might be a nice thing to throw into the mix in case you're the 1 to 3 out of 100 that do get the bad luck of, well, I don't know, bad luck or good luck of a very profound immune response, right? Again, I would feel very reassured if that was me.
So Tim, we've talked about safety. Let's talk about benefit and the effectiveness.
Yeah, Matt, let me let you, are you good taking this slide and running it through?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
So we mentioned this earlier a little bit. We foreshadowed this idea that these vaccines seem to be very highly protective from the disease of COVID-19, and that's demonstrated here in these slides. So what we know is that the vaccines reduce the rate of contracting the disease. So if you take all of the data across both trials, again, these now combine the 43,000 group out of Pfizer and the 30,000+ group out of Moderna, so over 77,000 people. There were a number of folks who contracted the disease, but the vast majority of those folks were in the placebo group. So 347 in the placebo group and 19 in the vaccinated group. The other thing we know about this vaccine is it really appears to reduce the rate of contracting severe COVID. So in the document that Mark shared with you is the definition that both study groups used for severe COVID. And what's really, really neat is that in the vaccinated group, there was 1 case of severe COVID. In the placebo group, there were 39 cases of severe COVID. I believe 1 of those cases of severe COVID died in the placebo group. The 1 case of severe COVID in the vaccinated group met the definition of severe by Pfizer in that that person's oxygen saturation was 93% on room air. That person, though, did not require admission to the hospital. So while they met the definition of severe, they did not meet a clinical definition that required them to be admitted to the hospital. So the really exciting thing about both of the vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, is they reduce the rate of contracting clinical disease and they reduce the rate of experiencing severe disease. And that's represented in this table here, but also represented in these graphs. So this graph on the left is the Moderna vaccine, and the graph on the right is the Pfizer vaccine. In both graphs, you'll see the time that the vaccine was given. So 0 and 28 days for Moderna, 0 and 21 days for Pfizer. And note that approximately 2 weeks after the second dose, there is a dramatic change, with the blue being the placebo group and the red being the vaccinated, and an increased cumulative case number that starts to climb significantly in the placebo group, but not in the vaccinated group. Now, yesterday, folks asked about just getting 1 dose of vaccine, and that's best demonstrated in the Pfizer graph. You notice that after 1 dose of vaccine, that both groups started to see disease and infection rates occur, but sometime around 2 weeks after that first dose. So that's best represented here in this breakout slide up on the top center under the Pfizer name. Sometime around the 2-week mark, there seemed to be a decrease and some protective nature after 1 dose of the vaccine. What we know is that there seems to be some protection, but it's not as good as if you follow what's called the prime and boost, or the 2 series of vaccines, the dose number 1 and then dose number 2 at a later date and time. And because that dose number 1, dose number 2 strategy was what was used by the trial groups, and what has proven to be most effective in causing that 95-94% protective rate from disease, everyone is recommending getting the 2-dose series of vaccines right now. While there is some protection from dose 1, we need to learn more about what that means. And for right now, we're recommending the 2-dose series. So let's pause right there. It seems like there might have been some activity in the chat room. Joshua Stewart asked, so to be clear, is it the Moderna vaccine offered to first responders, not the Pfizer? And Josh, the answer to that is right now, the primary vaccine offered to EMS, police, fire, and EMD will be Moderna. That's exclusively based on logistics, because Moderna does not require ultra cold chain storage and storage at the -70 Fahrenheit, -90 Celsius range. Moderna is frozen on arrival, but can then be maintained in a regular refrigerator/freezer for a period of time upon taking receipt. And while the first weeks, the EMS services who are providing vaccine will take receipt from the state, it is expected that shortly after the initiation of the vaccine campaign, services will be able to take receipt directly from the vaccine representative. Kelly added in a nice reminder that as early vaccination recipients, we will also be responsible for educating the public, and gives us a link to that. She also answered Josh. Thank you for that. Thank you, Beth, for doing that. And then Verna says the 144413DL from CDC via Sam Hurley is exclusively for the Pfizer product. Is there a DL for the Moderna? And Sam has that, I think, in the chat there. Josh goes on to ask, is that because it has gotten preservatives where the Pfizer doesn't? I haven't gotten a list of ingredients yet. Josh, so there's been a lot of talk about the requirement for the ultra cold storage. It has to do in part, I understand, and I'll confirm this for you, but what my understanding is that the ultra cold storage has to do with the proprietary nanolipid protein that Pfizer uses. It's not anything related to the mRNA. It's the wrapping, I understand, that requires that ultra cold chain storage. Moderna's lipid nanoparticle requires different freezer temperatures, and it all has to do not with the mRNA as much as the coat around it that requires that. Beth adds in there that the storage technique is different because of stability at different temps. Thank you for that, Beth.
So the answer would be no. We don't know of any preservative that's put in there. It's just the vehicle, the fat-like greasy vehicle is a little more stable for the Moderna than it is for the Pfizer. Needs colder storage for the Pfizer to stabilize it.
So back to this slide, though, these are intended to graphically represent just what the protection from clinical disease is. And in both of those, the blue numbers, again, are our placebo. The reds are our vaccine. And notice that the number of infected individuals is much, much lowered in the red. So that's it for our specific, what we've run into as far as frequently asked questions. We really want to open this up now for you, though. And many of you have been sending us chats through the chat function. We're happy if you'd like to continue that, but I am sure you have more questions. And please feel free to either use the chat function or to unmute yourself and just introduce yourself and let us know what question you have and ask us directly. And we'll do our best as a group to answer that for you. Any other questions folks have? Any other questions folks want to put in the chat room? If there aren't any other questions, is there anyone willing to share with us how they feel right now after listening to this presentation and what their thoughts are about the vaccine at this point in time? And that's okay if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Ben says he's waiting for the opportunity. Josh, you have a question? Go ahead, please ask. Mary says, thanks for sharing all this. Definitely has made me feel more comfortable, confident about getting the vaccine. Thank you for that, Mary. We appreciate that feedback. Jessica says, thank you. A lot of great info. Any other questions or comments folks have? Oh, Josh asks, so if I get the vaccine, how long will the virus live on me if I have an exposure? So Josh, in all honesty, getting back to that concept of brutal transparency, so we're learning about that question, the answer to that question right now, i.e., could you be an asymptomatic carrier? We're going to have to work through that as we, in parallel to rolling out the vaccine campaign. Your question specifically meant, do I still need to quarantine after exposure to a patient? Again, we will continue to be using the current Maine EMS, Maine CDC, federal CDC guidances, even through the initial months of our vaccine campaign. We'll be learning more about how to behave around quarantine as we get more information beyond the initial phases of this vaccine. So more to come on that. Thank you for your comment, Dana. Rick Smart says, I'm planning on getting it. I'm leaving it up to my personnel to make their own choice. Thank you for that, Rick. Brian says, thank you. I feel confident to advise my family members and friends. Brian, thank you for, that really means a lot. Thank you for your trust. That's a huge honor to hear you say that. Dana says, I also feel more well-equipped. Thank you for that, Dana. Again, that's a huge honor to hear from you all. I think there's a poll going on. I've got my screens up. Okay, interesting. Thank you. We really appreciate all of you who are answering that poll right now. That's really great to see. Great to see that some of you have learned something from this and feel confident right now. Randall says there's still too many what ifs to make a rock solid decision. Randall, we appreciate that. We appreciate your concern, and we also, as the very beginning of this presentation, we respect your decision. But please, if there's a way we can help you understand in any better way than this presentation, and help you feel more informed and empowered to make your decision, please reach out to all of us. You can reach out to any one of us by going to the Maine EMS website, clicking on boards and committees, going to the MDPB page, and on that page, you'll see links to all of our contact information. And please feel free to reach out to any of us for additional questions or any additional information. Joshua says, to share my feelings on it, I guess I don't see the need to risk side effects or reactions if I still may carry it and still have to wear my PPE. Maybe I'm missing something. It just seems rushed and a lot of unknowns. I appreciate the info very much, though. Thank you for that, Josh. I think that one of the things that we recognize about this vaccine is that there is this is kind of like delayed gratification in some ways. And the vaccine itself will not change what you do today, but it will change what we do as a society in the next 6 months or so as we get more and more and more members of society vaccinated. So I certainly respect your comments there, and I understand your hesitancy based on the fact that it doesn't feel like it's a personal improvement now, but I assure you there will be personal changes that come, especially as we hit the threshold and are able to really decrease the transmission of this disease across the community. So if you'd like to talk more about that at any time, please reach out to me again through that same MDPB website. We're happy to talk to you more about that. Will Barnum says, as the vaccine is rolled out to the general public in the future, is there information about the effectiveness and safety of the vaccine being given to children? That's a really great question, Will. Thank you for that. What we do know is that Pfizer has started enrolling children down to the 12-year-old timeframe. We don't have that information from them just yet. And I believe Moderna is doing the same. I'll confirm that. But we will know more information about children in the very near future. One of the things that's very interesting to think about those committees that Tim referenced earlier on, the ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, and the Vaccine and Related Biologics Advisory Program, or panel rather, advisory panel. Those are made up in many cases of pediatric specialists because many of the vaccines that we see in the US are pediatric-based vaccines. And so a lot of the folks who are paying attention to this are in the pediatric world and are very excited to see what the results in those studies are. So there'll be more information to come regarding our decision-making around pediatric patients. But great question, Will. Thank you for that. I think Dr. Zimmerman just texted me. Do you want to mention anything, Dr. Zimmerman?
I was wondering if you could, I don't know if I missed it at the beginning, but talk about a little bit about this disease and the morbidity versus mortality, because I think a lot of us are, and a lot of our, and there's a good chunk of our EMS personnel who are younger and may not see the risk as much as we do, having been treating some of the younger patients and seeing the morbidity that's associated with it. So I was wondering if you could talk about that, if you haven't already.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
great.
Matt, let me take first stab at that, and then
Please,
I'm gonna have
yeah.
you piggyback and other folks piggyback. One of the things for me personally, like well, I'm not as young as others on here, but I think of myself as quite young. But I also rely on my own fitness for everything that I like to do. And one of the studies that caught my eye was in JAMA Cardiology that was related to healthy, fit college athletes. And the idea that Matt talked about in the beginning, that this affects multiple organs, including the heart. And one of the results of this study that really amplified my concern about this disease for even the young folks is that they found on clearing them to return to sports for their college sports, that they found a percentage of folks that had developed cardiomyopathy. So the pump of their heart wasn't functioning as it had before the infection. And it left a dilemma on, are they safe to return to sports if their heart wasn't functioning as well after this coronavirus infection. And that really caught me, if for those that are doing firefighter EMS type activities, you really rely on your fitness to safely enter a building and function in a firefighting mode. For me, on the need to exercise regularly in order to have my soul be in balance, anything that threatens my ability to exercise rigorously was a real concern for me, let alone the rare young people that do get sick enough to be in the ICU or unfortunately get killed by this virus. Although thankfully that's not a high number. It's far more lethal to the elderly, but it did get under that protective area. I'm very motivated to keep my old people safe from me giving them the infection, but it's always more profound when it comes under the radar and affects me personally. And I thought that cardiomyopathy study really caught me. So I'd love to hear other people's thoughts.
No, I think that sums it up nicely, Tim. I think it's important to recognize this is not a disease of one age group, it's a disease of all age groups. The morbidity is common across all of age groups, and there is mortality in every age group. I think about this and feel like this is not a virus that is to be considered lightly. It is a very, very dangerous virus. Ben asks the question, what age are they currently recommended for? Greater than 18 years old. And Ben, you're right, for the Moderna, the recommendation is for those over 18 years old. So Moderna is over 18 years old. Pfizer's EUA is for those who are greater than 16 years of age, or 16 and older. Josh asks if there is a reason that the first rounds are going out to those who are most likely to survive COVID-19. It would seem the most effective to roll it out to those at highest risk of dying from COVID-19. Well, I think, Josh, there's a couple different ways to answer that question. But the reality is that we all collectively on this Zoom call and in our careers, we are the ones who are interacting mostly with the most vulnerable populations, and there is a risk inherent and there's a rationale to protect us because we're seeing the patients with this disease. It's important to recognize, though, that the ACIP, along with frontline healthcare providers, placed residents of long-term care facilities in Tier 1A as well, as along with the healthcare workers who are caring for them. So your supposition that it's important to protect them is reflected in that ACIP recommendation. So right now, along with you, along with your colleagues, along with emergency medicine, intensive care, and COVID ward healthcare providers, long-term care residents, and those working with long-term care residents to care for them are also in Tier 1A. Any other questions at all? Okay. Someone asked me, would this be a correct perspective in response to those who are saying they don't see a benefit? We are the ones who don't want to wear all the extra PPE, and we are the ones expressing concern over the speed with which this was pushed through. So in short, the idea is that if there's a widespread community effort to implement this vaccine, we'll be able to move beyond the conditions of the pandemic in 6 to 9 months. And it's because of that this speed has taken place. We don't want to wait 5 years and to continue to wear all the extra PPE for that entire time. This is a step in helping get things under control. It isn't an end all be all now, but an important step in the process. And I think that's a great way to look at that. This is one more offensive step. It doesn't put the fire out right now, but it's a step in the right direction of putting the fire of COVID-19 out. And we start putting water on the fire now with our vaccine campaign. I can't agree with that more. I think that's a great way to consider this and consider why this is important. Even if we don't diminish our PPE posture immediately, it gives us a foot in the door and it gets us moving in the direction where we can in the near future. So thank you for that comment. So I'm not seeing any other questions right now in the chat function. Not seeing any other questions. Please, as questions do arise, please let us know. Please reach out to us. If you have other thoughts about this, we're very excited to hear from you. Again, our goal is to really help you. And whatever decision you make, that is your decision, and we respect that. But our intention with this day, with the further conversations that are going to be coming up on Monday and Tuesday, our entire goal is to help you feel more comfortable in the decision you do make and to help you feel more informed and empowered as you make that decision. We really thank you for taking the time today to do this. We know some of you are on your weekend off. We understand that you're attending this on your own time. We really can't appreciate you enough for what you're doing to attend this right now. We also recognize that your efforts over the last 9 months are in part why our state has fared so well. And your attention to this pandemic, your attention to the recommendations of the federal, state, CDC, of Maine EMS, your ongoing investment in the safety of our shared population is inspiring and has been a huge reason why we are where we are right now. And we can't thank you enough. We really appreciate everything you're doing. Please keep in contact with us if you have further questions. I did just see one more question pop up that I'll answer. The question there is there any timeline for distribution? And the answer to that, Brian, is absolutely. So hot off the press as of last night was that the FDA approved Moderna's vaccine for their EUA, their emergency use authorization. And what that means is that what we expect is that shipments will begin imminently. Thinking back a week ago, Pfizer's EUA was approved on a Friday and vaccines arrived in state on Monday, and they were vaccines started on Tuesday. What we expect is a similar practice. And what Maine EMS is expecting is that with every shipment of Moderna, the EMS community will receive a portion of each of those shipments. We won't receive enough of a shipment to immunize everyone on day one, but over the course of 5 weeks, we expect to be able to get everyone dose one. So between, if Monday is indeed the day they're shipped and Tuesday is the day they arrive, 5 weeks from that point in time, we're hoping to be able to have given everyone their first dose of vaccine. So that's exciting that that it's coming, and it's exciting that we have a timeline that is so aggressive. So thank you for that question. Tim, please, anything else you want to add?
No, I really appreciate everybody's time. And again, like Matt said, please reach out. You can get to my email on the Maine EMS webpage when you go to the MDPB site. I'm happy to talk to anyone. Or happy to come and do a Zoom or come to a Region 3 agency, EMS agency, if you want a one-on-one talk. I'm going to work hard to make myself available to ask any questions. So just reach out and I'll do everything I can to help you with any information that helps you make this decision. And again, it's your decision, right? So anything I can do to help with information so that you feel like you got good data when you make this risk-benefit decision for yourself.
Anything from other MDPB members present? Sam, anything you want to add? Sam has very nicely put in the instructions on how to reach out to any of us in the chat function. Please take a snapshot of that if you want. But anything else to add, Sam?
No, just a special thank you for everyone and all the hard work that you do on a daily basis to support our EMS system. We are working diligently to try and get this vaccine out as quickly as possible to first responders throughout the state of Maine. And so please know that we are trying to get it to you as quickly as possible and as safely and as efficiently as possible. So we are pleasantly optimistic about having the first dose administered to all first responders within the first 5 weeks. We know that that is a lofty goal, but we certainly do think that it is possible based on the number of doses that we anticipate on receiving. So it's very exciting. And the sooner we can move through EMS, the sooner we can move to phase 1B, where we start vaccinating our other public safety colleagues. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and a happy holiday.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you all. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your weekend. And I echo Sam's wishes for happy holidays. Take care.
People couldn't see